Hello, class, and welcome to this lecture on late adulthood in the course Lifespan Development. My name is Dr. Neil Soggie, and in this lecture, I really invite you to come to this lecture with an open spirit. None of us are at this stage, and so this is something that we have to look forward to. And I want you to kind of be mindful of what you have to look forward to, and also how can we help those in this stage of life. All of us are going to move through the various rich tapestry ages of life, and we're going to end up, if we're lucky, in late life. And so as we explore all of the challenges and opportunities here, I want you to just reflect upon how life has been lived and what you have to look forward to in your life as well. Within this lecture, we will be focusing upon several things. First off, always we start with a story, and then I want to dive into, first off, dissecting a little bit of the biological aging process and understand how our bodies transform as we advance through late adulthood. And so this is going to encompass an exploration of physiological changes, sensory adaptation, and the pivotal role of health and wellness in maintaining vitality and quality of life. And we'll also investigate the whole realm of thinking, of cognition, and we'll try to unravel some of the mysteries of memory and problem-solving abilities, and the whole cultivation of wisdom and expertise. We'll then take a little bit of time and explore that interplay between social and emotional dimensions in late life, and explore what encompasses social relationships and strategies that there might be for emotional regulation and all the many transitions that a person has to go through within this late stage of life. And then finally, we will narrow in on Erik Erikson's psychosocial theory and explore the whole concept of integrity versus despair, and reflect on how earlier psychosocial stages shape a person's experiences and perceptions in late life. And we'll look at what a person can offer in late life and how we at our various stages of life can draw upon the great wisdom that is there from those in late life. But as always, I'd like to begin with a story, and today's story is a biography, a little bit about Dr. Laura Carstensen. She was born in 1956 and really kind of stands as a transformative force in our understanding of socio-emotional development across aging, but in particular in late life. She was born in Philadelphia, but she's a professor at Stanford University. And Carstensen's pioneering research has challenged traditional views of aging as a period of decline. And what she's chosen to do instead is to highlight the remarkable resilience and the remarkable adaptability of older adults. And one of her most influential contributions is the socio-emotional selectivity theory. And what this posits is that as individuals age, they become increasingly motivated to prioritize emotionally meaningful goals and relationships. And while selectivity here kind of refers to the person is selective in their disengagement from activities and social ties that they perceive as less relevant to their well-being. And so the socio-emotional selectivity theory is about selecting what to drop and selecting what is more important and what to hold on to. And central to the socio-emotional selectivity theory is the concept of time perception. And here it's about the person realizing that time influences their goals and their behaviors. And that's something that, ideally we should really learn early on in life, that we only have a limited amount of time to do the things that we want to do within life. So why waste time doing things that we don't want to do? Why not focus in on what is productive and meaningful and helpful, and focusing upon relationships that are meaningful and caring, and in so doing enriching our life. And when we do that, recognizing that every choice that we make rules out other options. And we do that because we recognize that we only have a limited amount of time. Most people don't live that way, but Carstensen points out that as you get older, you realize, oh, yes, I am getting close to death. And I need to recognize that now. That is a part of my everyday reality. My peers are dying, and so I need to prioritize things that are truly important, because that time horizon is drawing near. And so Carstensen's research has really revolutionized our sense of old age from a time of just decline to one of improvement in emotionally gratifying experiences, in emotionally fulfilling relationships, and leading to a greater sense of well-being and life satisfaction. So it can be an extremely rewarding time within life. Now, let's take a little bit of time and look at the overall picture of late adulthood. We colloquially refer to this as the third act of life, or, maybe the golden years. And in this period, we're kind of thinking about the time after 65 years of age, where retirement and kind of that significant transition away from generativity to something else is taking place. Now, throughout history, we need to kind of be mindful here that this whole perception of late adulthood has evolved and changed depending upon the culture, but also depending upon, the quality of life, healthcare advancements, that sort of thing. And the first thing I want to kind of highlight here is that healthcare technology, while it helps in old age, isn't necessarily the thing that extends life, but it's rather the wellness that has been going on and the wellness improvements in life that have been going on at the earlier stages of life that really have make late adulthood, that is the time after 65, even possible. With the rise of industrialization and modernization and social attitudes towards aging, though, there's been this shift to older adults sometimes being marginalized or even viewed as being burdensome. But today, as populations around the world continue to age due to the increased longevity and declining birth rates, there's a growing recognition of the importance of promoting health, health and active aging. And so cultures are going to vary in their attitudes and practices, but overall, this is a time of focusing upon, for most, retirement, leisure activities, opportunities for continued growth and fulfillment. Yes, there's going to be some challenges, particularly with health and socioeconomic inequalities, but it's at this time when the little things in life become really, truly important. Now, there are some significant physical changes that are going to take place during this late adulthood. And most of that has to do with biological aging, and we call this senescence. And this is just a gradual decline in cellular function and physiological processes over time. Now, when we think in terms of senescence, we're really thinking in terms of cellular senescence. So, as an individual ages, their cells undergo changes that affect their replication and repair abilities. There's something called a telomere. And once that telomere grows a little bit, and then every time a cell divides and reproduces, then it shrinks a little bit. So over time, if there was perfect balance in the telomere, then theoretically we would never age. We would never get old. But it isn't in perfect balance. And so there is eventual death and decline in tissue and organ function as these cells stop reproducing. And that leads to susceptibility in these, what we call age-related diseases. And of course, there's a lot of things that are going to play into this. There's going to be genetic factors, that will determine the rate of aging, as well as huge things are things like lifestyle factors. So what we eat, exercise, our stress management, all of those things are going to play a huge role. If we manage our stress well, if we eat a lot of vegetables and do a lot of exercise, we'll likely live a very long time if we avoid toxic substances like alcohol and smoking and that sort of thing. Now, there are also going to be some inevitable sensory changes. There's age-related changes to the eye, and this can impact visual acuity and depth perception. There's age-related hearing loss, and this particularly affects the ability of an older individual to hear high-frequency sounds and understand speech in noisy environments. And there's also a decline in taste and smell sensitivity, and this can potentially impact appetite and enjoyment of food. Another thing that is important here, obviously, is the increased risk of chronic diseases. And so it's important to take some proactive measures to help mitigate the risks here. So managing things like hypertension and diabetes and arthritis and cardiovascular disease. And this is ideally done with lifestyle modifications and regular monitoring, and also some physical activities like walking and swimming and strength training to improve cardiovascular health and muscle strength. And also, of course, nutrition, so fruits and vegetables and whole grains and lean proteins. All of that becomes very important here as well. There's also going to be some changes in cognitive functioning. Memory itself is a very multifaceted thing that's spread across various parts of the brain, although there is a memory core right in the center of the brain. But there are different types of memory, and those can, while they can remain intact, they can decline at different rates. And so there's things like episodic memory, and that's where you can recall specific events and experiences. And what happens here typically is a loss of the complex or the detailed memories that a person would have of episodic memory. Then there's semantic memory, and this is your storage and retrieval of general knowledge and concepts. And that does generally tend to remain stable or even improve in late adulthood. Now, one of the things that happens here, though, is there's going to be some variability here because of potential brain health issues. There's also something known as working memory, and working memory refers to kind of that storage that you have to kind of hold things in the present moment, and that exhibits a marked decline in its processing speed. as a person ages. Now, there are still some aspects of problem-solving abilities, so things like fluid intelligence, which really kind of involves abstract reasoning and adaptability, has a gradual decline in late adulthood, and that impacts tasks that require novel problem solving. So you probably aren't going to see someone in their in their 70s or 80s coming up with new and innovative solutions that no one has thought of before. Rather, you kind of expect them to be aware of what other people have done at this age, rather than come up with new and novel solutions themselves. But that can be extremely valuable, because there's a lot of wisdom and expertise that can be found in this. And this encompasses across the different parts of life, from insight and judgment to emotional regulation. Normally, older adults will exhibit greater emotional regulation. And so this is characterized by the ability to maintain emotional equilibrium and maintain perspective in very challenging situations. And wisdom, that is perspective taking, involves considering multiple points of view, my point of view, your point of view, another person's point of view, and that leads to a more balanced and nuanced decision-making process. And finally, full life experience that a person has accumulated is going to develop wisdom and expertise. And this really does become a huge part in late adulthood, ideally, in successful late adulthood anyways. Now, there's also going to be some socio-emotional changes within life. Social relationships, of course, they're going to play a crucial role in the lives of older adults. They provide, just like at any age, support and companionship and a source of meaning. And really, in late adulthood, there's some new dynamics in social networks and interaction. Because older adults tend to experience changes in the composition and size of their social networks. So, for example, when a person retires or they relocate or they have the loss of loved ones, that tends to have a significant shift in their social connections. And so intergenerational relationships become more important. So grandparenthood, for example, and relationships with adult children and grandchildren often take on heightened significance in late adulthood and provide opportunities for intergenerational exchange and support. And then there's also the maintaining of social engagement through participation in community activities and volunteer work and social groups. As I've already mentioned, emotional regulation is something that typically becomes improved. There's improved emotional stability. There's improved ability to cope with life experiences. A sense of resilience tends to develop, as well as gratitude for what a person has. But there are still going to be some life transitions, even in late adulthood. There's actually a lot of life transitions. There's retirement, there's widowhood, there's changes in health and living arrangement. And then, of course, there is eventual death and looking at that mortality, because that kind of bookends this stage of life. And so you need to kind of be mindful that at the beginning of this process, there's an adjustment in daily routines, in retirement, in their sense of identity, in financial planning. A loss of the significant other can have a profound emotional and social repercussions. Loss of friends, loss of social networks. And then, of course, the health transitions that can take place. Loss of functionality, loss of and decline of function. And then end of life decisions. How do I want to spend my last days? What are my levels of care that I want? That sort of thing. So there's a lot going on here, but I want to kind of focus in on specifically on the psychosocial aspect of late adulthood with Erik Erikson, because I think he provides a very valuable framework, particularly for this age of integrity versus despair. Now, according to Erikson, the primary conflict in late adulthood revolves around the dichotomy between, am I going to have integrity or am I going to look back on life with despair? And what kind of attitude am I going to take towards life in this time of gradual decline? And individuals who successfully navigate this stage develop a sense of integrity. That is a feeling of wholeness and satisfaction with their life. And so this reflects on, they reflect upon their accomplishments and their relationships and their experiences with a sense of acceptance and wisdom. Now, in contrast, those who struggle with this stage may experience feelings of despair and regret and disillusionment. And this can lead to a sense of hopelessness and dissatisfaction. Now, Erikson's theory suggests that, of course, resolution of earlier psychosocial stages sets the stage for successful navigation in late adulthood. So through the lifespan, you want all these things to kind of develop. And some of the key things are, first off, in adolescence, identity versus role confusion. So here, successful resolution of identity formation during adolescence lays the groundwork for a coherent sense of self in later life. Then comes in young adulthood, intimacy versus isolation, where the quality of interpersonal relationships established during this time develops the person's capacity for intimacy and connections in late life. And then there's generativity versus stagnation, and here it's about the desire to nurture and contribute to future generations, and this shapes the person's sense of purpose and meaning in adult life. And all of that lays the foundation for integrity versus despair. But even if you didn't do a good job in making clear resolutions towards identity and intimacy and generativity, you can go back here and work on them now in late life and readjust them and solidify them. And in so doing, and that's part of that selectivity that Carstensen was talking about, selectively prioritizing things that are important and getting rid of things that aren't important. And in so doing, then, a person can refine their identity and refine and selectively improve their intimacy and selectively improve their ways of caring for others and generativity. And that can help in successful resolution in this final stage of integrity versus despair, where you are living in wisdom and integrity and knowing who you are and how you can contribute to the lives of others, rather than living in despair and going, oh, what if I had done this? What if I had done that? So that is a key part of late adulthood. Now, of course, there are other kinds of things that are being dealt with in late adulthood. One of those things are the socioeconomic factors, like retirement. And here you need to kind of remember that this is a major life transition. It marks the end of one's formal employment and the beginning of a new phase in life. And while retirement can bring newfound freedom and leisure, it can also represent challenges related to financial planning and social adjustment and identity. And so adequate financial planning is really essential for assuring ensuring a secure retirement. So factors like savings and pensions and investments and healthcare expenses are extremely important here. There's also the social adjustment in networks and daily routines and adjusting to new roles and activities and sources of social interaction. And also the sense of purpose and identity that can be found as you transition from work to hobbies and leisure time and personal fulfillment. And that's something that I've seen at times where someone lives for their work and then once they retire, they die immediately. Well, that's because there wasn't an identity put into anything else. And that's one of the dangers. So it's important to have leisure time and hobbies and things that you can do into late adulthood. It's also financial security. So making sure that you have adequate income and adequate savings, and that you can cover your expenses and your health care, that you have Social Security benefits and pension plans, that you have an affordable and adequate health care plan, particularly because this is a time of chronic health conditions, and that can sometimes limit insurance coverage. There are also housing and living arrangements. So you want something that's age appropriate as far as housing, something that's accessible, something like single-story residences or wheelchair ramps and community amenities, as well as long-term care facilities and long-term health care. There's also the adjustment in living arrangements, choosing to live independently with family members in retirement communities or in assisted living facilities can also be significant changes within life. There are also some family dynamics that need to be dealt with during this stage, and this includes learning to be a good grandparent, sometimes a great grandparent. Grandparenthood is a time of really connecting with the next generation and supporting them and building a legacy. Grandparents play a vital role in the lives of grandchildren. They offer them love and guidance and wisdom. They provide support and family cohesion and contribute to a sense of well-being. And they also pass on family traditions and values and cultural heritage. And so there are some very important intergenerational relationships that need to provide mutual support and reciprocity and interdependence. There's the parent-child relationship that continues on as the child becomes older and their changing dynamics and roles take place. There's also caregiving and support. Older adults can provide caregiving support to adult children during times of need or illness or divorce or financial hardship. And conversely, adult children may begin to assume caregiving roles for aging parents. There's also the importance of communication and managing conflict and learning how to deal with others with respect and empathy, to prioritize the relationship over any personal goals. But there are some challenges working with older adults. There's working with family members, for example, that may be informal caregivers for older adults. That's a valuable thing, providing assistance, but that can take a toll upon the caregiver and lead to stress and burnout and compromising their own well-being. So that's something to be mindful of as well. Late adulthood is also a stage in life that's really characterized by some unique mental health challenges as well as some opportunities. And a person that faces the transitions and losses and changes in physical health that can impact psychological well-being as well. Depression and anxiety are things that are common throughout the lifespan, but they are obviously still going to be present in late life. So feelings of sadness and hopelessness, a loss of interest in previously enjoyed activities. And this gets to be exacerbated when you're in late adulthood and you're also dealing with chronic illness and disability and bereavement and social isolation. There's also anxiety. There's a lot of things to be worried about. There's financial worries. There's changes in living arrangements. And so there's some coping strategies that need to be learned where you can focus upon resolving the problem. There's also emotional focused coping strategies that focus on managing the emotional distress and regulating difficult emotions. And this includes things like, relaxation exercises, mindfulness, meditation, that sort of thing. And ideally, a person is going to be able to develop some resilience and develop flexibility and optimism and resourcefulness. There's also a key part in this is spirituality and meaning making. For older adults, spirituality can encompass a sense of connection to something greater than themselves, whether this is through religious beliefs and faith traditions or through personal philosophies. Spiritual beliefs can provide some solace and some guidance during times of uncertainty and loss and transition, particularly in the face of death. But there's also meaning making, and meaning making is about reflecting upon life experiences and values and beliefs and deriving a sense of purpose and significance and engagement from that. And so all of these things can lead to a sense of integrity and richness in life that other people just are not able to really fathom. And so there can be some wonderful gifts in late adulthood. But there's also the whole question of when is late adulthood going to end? In other words, reflecting upon your mortality and considering the end of life issues. As a person ages, they're going to confront decisions and transitions that are related to death and dying. And this is going to necessitate some thoughtful planning and support and compassionate care. And so understanding and addressing these end-of-life issues is really essential for promoting dignity and comfort and quality of life in adulthood. So death it's an inevitable part of life. So there's no point ignoring it. It's going to be there. And so it's important to deal with it. One of the ways that we can deal with it is by some existential reflection, by acknowledging the reality that this is part of life and that this creates a meaning and a frame of meaning for life's accomplishments, for the kinds of relationships that we have, for the values that we deal with. Oftentimes, existential philosophers will call a strive just for financial success and that sort of thing as being a flight from death. That is a way to kind of pretend that you're never going to die. But it's a false kind of way of living. Instead, a person should recognize, yes, I'm going to die, and then prioritize in view of that what you're going to do with your life. There's also, of course, though, the reality that you're going to lose loved ones. You're going to lose family members and friends and peers. And so this is going to be something that you will have to deal with. There's the need to deal with grief and bereavement. Now, grief is a natural and it's a necessary process. So learning how to grieve in a healthy way, where you can navigate emotional and physical and social dimensions of loss, is a very valuable thing. But then you only get to die once. And so it's about being aware of what are the options available for you. There's hospice care, there's palliative care. And what is palliative care? Palliative care is where you are in a hospital or in a setting that focuses upon relieving symptoms, managing pain, and improving your quality of life for individuals when you are at that stage where you know you will be dying soon. And so it's about some holistic care that addresses your physical and emotional and social and spiritual needs. There's also hospice care, which provides support for individuals that are terminally ill and have a prognosis of, less than 6 months to live. And so it's going to prioritize comfort and dignity and quality of life. And in the midst of all of this, it's important to have some advanced care planning. And advanced care planning involves discussing with people how you want to enter that end stage. What kind of end of life care do you want? And the kind of decision making in the event of incapacity. Do you want to be revived and for people to do everything in their medical power to keep you alive? Or do you want to be permitted to pass on more peacefully? Once it's your time, that you simply let yourself go. And that ties in with advance directives. And what an advance directive is it's really a legal document that tells healthcare providers and tells people, first off, what you want, and then if you are unable, who are the surrogate decision makers in the event of you being incapacitated. So you have things like a living will, and what a living will is really it kind of outlines a person's preferences for their kind of medical treatment and their end of life care. And this includes decisions about life sustaining measures, or if I'm kind of on death's door, do I want to be resuscitated, or do you just want me to be passed along? As well as things like, do you want your organs donated? That sort of thing. There's also a healthcare proxy, and this is known as a durable power of attorney for healthcare. And this really designates someone that you trust to make medical decisions on behalf of yourself, so that in the case that you're unable to do so yourself. And this ensures that your wishes are honored and that your values are carried through in the decision-making process, the medical decision-making process. Now, in terms of late adulthood, well, there's been a drastic change in life longevity and aging. And that has taken place largely because of environmental and lifestyle factors within life. Now, of course, there are a lot of factors that influence longevity within life. There's genetic predisposition. That's going to play a significant role because there's certain genetic variations that are associated with increased resistance to age-related diseases and longer lifespan. There's also lifestyle behaviors such as diet and exercise and sleep quality and stress management, social engagement that can profoundly influence the longevity and health outcomes, as well as, remember, those healthy choices that you made earlier in life, like maintaining balanced diet, like maintaining regular physical exercise, like avoiding harmful habits like smoking or alcohol consumption. And that can promote longevity and reduce the risk of chronic diseases, as well as environmental factors, socioeconomic status, access to health care, environmental pollutions and avoiding those, and or any other social detriments like increased stress. And there has become a part of the population that are centenarians or super centenarians. So that, what is a centenarian? That's someone that's lived to be 100 years or older. And super centenarians are those that have reached 110 or older. And they represent an exceptionally long life. And there are a lot of things that go into that. But despite their advanced age, many centenarians and supercentenarians maintain relatively good physical and cognitive functioning. And so this really does challenge the stereotype of aging as a period of eventual and inevitable decline. Now, there's some significant factors that go into this, like maintaining social relationships and staying mentally engaged, and having a quality of life that promotes support to the community and from the community, and having that kind of place of meaning and significance. And so there are some important health aging strategies, like caring for your physical health, but also your cognitive health and your emotional health and your social well-being. All of those need to be tied together. One of those things is lifelong learning, continuing education courses. Places like Harvard and Oxford have special programs for people over 65. There's hobbies that you can, if you have a special skill, dive into that a little bit and explore and create meaning there, as well as intellectual pursuits and being creative and using your mental acuity. Regular physical activity, of course, is always an important thing. You want to maintain mobility and strength and cardiovascular health as long as you can. And exercise can also reduce the risk of chronic diseases and improve mood and cognitive function. And you also want to maintain social connections and participate in community activities and volunteer work and social groups. All of that becomes extremely important. So, as we close out this lecture, I want to highlight a few key terms. One of them is centenarian, which is, as we just mentioned, someone who's reached the age of 100 or older. And centenarians are often studied to gain insights into what are the factors that are really associated with longevity and healthy aging. There's also palliative care, and that is that specialized medical care that focuses not on curing something, but of relieving symptoms and relieving stress. And the whole goal of palliative care is to improve quality of life for both the patient and their family. And so it's about addressing physical and emotional and spiritual needs. What is an advanced care directive? Well, that is a legal document that allows a person to specify their preferences on how they want to be treated medically and the kind of end of life care. And usually in the event that they become unable to make decisions for themselves, then the caregivers have something to fall back on as far as what the wishes of the individual were. Some common advanced directives include things like a living will and a healthcare proxy. And finally, spirituality. And, this is a broad concept that covers things like beliefs and values and practices and experiences that give a person a sense of meaning and purpose and connection to something greater than themselves. And spirituality can provide comfort and guidance and resilience in times of adversity and uncertainty. And so finally, the question: what is the primary goal of palliative care? Is it to cure a serious illness? No, probably not. Is it to prolong life at all costs? No, probably not. To address only the physical needs of the patient? No, probably not. Is it to provide relief from symptoms and improve quality of life? Oh, ding, 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 there we go. That is palliative care. And so, by recognizing the complexities of late adulthood and implementing some interventions and support systems, we can promote the well-being and dignity and quality of life of older adults, and we can prepare ourselves for engaging in the inevitable challenges and opportunities that take place within late adulthood. Remembering that the important value to be found and resolved in this late stage is integrity, of knowing who you are, of sharing that with others, and doing so in a positive way as we walk towards our inevitable end. And that, my friends, is our course in lifespan development. What happens next in this course is some presentations. So I want to thank you. This is the last lecture that I will be providing, and I look forward to hearing from each one of you, your presentations and your take on the challenges and opportunities that come in death and dying. You take care. Bye-bye.